whether or not you accept going to a school. So let's just go ahead and get started. So what exactly is a financial aid package? So a financial aid package is the amount of financial aid, federal and non-federal, a student is offered by a college or career school. The school's financial aid staff combines various forms of aid into a package to help meet a student's educational cost. So in your financial aid package, you're going to be given the cost of attendance. You're also going to be given the total amount of aid that you were able to receive and how much you eventually have to pay off to attend that school for that specific year. So so students receive a financial aid package every single year that they're in college. So it's important to note that your financial aid package could change, and so that's why it's important for you to understand how to read it. So what are the types of aid? So students are able to get a lot of different types of aid. So the first one is the Cal Grant, which is a California state program. The Cal Grant is only given to students who are that currently reside in California and go to a California school. So if you decide to go out of state, you unfortunately cannot use your Cal Grant for out of state tuition. And the Cal Grant will cover tuition and fees for students. Then you have the Pell Grant, which is the grant that you receive if you do your FAFSA form. So the FAFSA application is, and you're required to do the FAFSA application if you want to receive a Pell Grant. Then you have Parent Plus loans, work study, university loans, private loans, federal subsidized loans, federal unsubsidized loans, and university grants, and you also have scholarships. So financial aid includes what we call free money, and it also includes money that you have to pay back. So loans is the most common type of financial aid that you are required to pay back. So there are different types of loans. The first one is a Parent Plus loan. So this type of loan is something that your parents will have to sign for, and it will be in your parents' name. A Parent Plus loan, like I mentioned, will be in your parents' name, and it will help the student pay for whatever type of fee that they need paid for. Parent Plus loans have to normally be, or they normally start excuse me. Parents normally have to start paying back a Parent Plus loan within 30 days of the money getting distributed. For example, if a student receives Parent Plus loan funds on October 1st, starting September 1st, parents are required to pay back that money. It's really important that parents understand the responsibility of taking a Parent Plus loans because those type of loans are in the parent's name. Then you have a university loan, which are loans given by the school that you're attending. This type of loans will be in the student's name, so you would have to sign for them. Then you have private loans, which could come from a bank, a different type of organization. Private loans, the interest rate varies. And once again, it varies whether or not the student has to sign for it. Maybe parents have to co-sign. It just depends where you're getting the private loans from. Then you have federal subsidized loans and federal unsubsidized loans. The difference between these two are that unsubsidized loans start charging students interest while they're in school and when they're in their deferment period. So if you take out money on October 1st, from that moment that you get that money, they start charging you interest, whereas subsidized loans don't charge student interest until after the deferment period. And for those of you that don't know what the deferment period is, typically 6 months after you graduate, if you take out a federal loan, they don't expect you to pay that back until after 6 months of your graduation. So that means if you take subsidized loans, they don't start charging you interest until 6 months after graduation. And then we have free money, which is work study, the Cal Grant, university grants, the Pell Grant, and scholarships. So for those of you who don't know what work study is is a certain amount of money that the school will give you so that you could be hired by different on-campus jobs or internships. Work study does not have to be paid back, but you only get that money if you work. Does anyone have any questions about the differences between the different loans or the free money so far? Okay, I'm gonna move forward. So we're gonna go ahead and look at a financial aid package from UC Davis. I just wanted to make very clear that this financial aid package is a UC Davis financial aid package. So if you're a current senior and you apply to different types of universities or colleges, your financial aid package might look a little different. They're set up different from by each school. So just make sure that you're understanding what you're reading. But let's go ahead and get started. So this is if you're going to be going to UC Davis, this is your master view. And then I've broken it down into sections. So this is the top section. So as you could see that the top section is labeled as total estimated financial aid. So this lays out the type of aid that students will receive. So you could see that this student is receiving $36,570 of financial aid. They got awarded the Cal Grant A fee award. So like I mentioned earlier, the Cal Grant will cover your tuition and fees. There are 3 different types of Cal Grant, and it just depends on your income on which one you'll receive. Then this student was given $5,500 of federal direct subsidized loans. Then they were awarded around $6,895 of Pell Grant. They were also awarded the Middle Class Scholarship, which is $207. Then they were awarded a University Campus Fee Grant, which is $990. They were awarded a university grant, which came out to $4,656, and then a university grant for SHIP. SHIP is the student health care plan. Every single college has a student health care plan, and students are expected to pay for that plan unless they have their own type of insurance, and you waive out of that. So current seniors, you should really investigate how much your health care plan is expected to cost you. And if you're able to waive out of it, you should start looking at waiving out of that. So this student was awarded a grant for their health care, which was $2,760. And then they were also awarded work study. So work study for this student was $2,992. You have to, if you're a current senior, in order to be awarded work study, when you did your FAFSA application, you had to click the box that says yes, that I was interested. If you put no, then they weren't even going to consider you for work study. So if that's something that you would like to be considered and you put no for, go ahead. I believe you could go back and change that. But once again, you had to put yes for that question on the FAFSA application in order to be considered for work study. The box underneath that is the total estimated cost of attendance. So this lays out exactly how much your school expects you to pay per item that's being offered. So you could see for this student that for tuition and fees, they're expected to pay around $14,724. For books and supplies, they expect that student to pay $1,221. For room and board, they're expected to pay around $15,841. They're expected the student to pay around $1,410 for personal expenses, and for their health insurance, they're expected to pay $2,760. And then there's an other column, which could be just different types of expenses, which is personal care, maybe clothes. It could just really be really random, which they expect students to spend at least $615 on that. And then below, you could see that they have a section for expected family contribution, EFC for short, and that states how much your family is expected to pay for you to attend college. So for this student, they expect the family to contribute $0, which is very common if you do come from a low income area. You would also find out your EFC, do your FAFSA application. So in total, this student is expected to pay around $36,571 to attend UC Davis, their third year of attendance. So now we're going to break down what you just saw. So how do you break down your package? So the first thing you have to do is you have to start with the total estimated cost of attendance, which this is going to be $1 off. I just noticed. So just subtract a dollar from the final cost. So for this student, they were expected to pay $36,570. The way that I tend to break down packages is I always subtract the cost of housing because as a first year, they're always going to charge you the most expensive package. So if you, I would just go ahead and subtract that. And then once you know your housing contract, you could plug it back in to know how much you would have to pay out of pocket. So for this student, um, they pay $15,841 for housing. And when you subtract that, you get $20,730. I subtracted the Cal Grant A because that's something that they're for sure gonna get, which is $12,570. So when you subtract that, they're left with 8,160. The next thing that I would subtract is the university grant for healthcare because they know they're for sure gonna get that and they're for sure gonna get charged that amount. So you subtract $2,760. We're left with $5,400. The next thing that I would subtract is any scholarships that that student received. So this student is receiving the middle class scholarship, which is $207. Once you subtract out, it's $5,193. The next thing that you would subtract are any university grants that are given. So when you subtract the university fee grant, that's $990 that they're getting awarded. So they're left with $4,203. The next grant that you should subtract is the university grant, which in this case, it's $4,656. And they're left, oh, the money that they're left over is $453. You could see that they still have their Pell Grant that they haven't used. So then that's the next thing that I would add to the $453. So in this case, you would add $6,895, and they're left over with a total of $7,348 that they can use towards their housing. So here's another breakdown of what we just did. Because this student is going to a quarter school, you would always break down all of your awards by 3 because you're going to have to pay for your tuition and fees 3 times throughout the school year. So you could see that this is nicely laid out in fall 2022, winter 2023, and spring 2023. So you could see how the school is going to divide everything that this student is given. And each semester, the student is going to have to pay $11,192. Um, I'm going to go ahead and move back to to the screen we were just at to talk about this $7,348. So this leftover money, I would go ahead and subtract it from whatever the housing cost is for this specific student. So if you subtract it by 15,841, you're left with $8,493 that the student might have to pay out of pocket, depending if that's the actual housing cost that they're gonna have. And this student would divide that by 3, because that's eventually all that they're gonna have to pay. Now, you could see that I did not include work study in the cost of the package because work study is only awarded to you once you have that job. So I wouldn't count work study into this until you're hired. Sometimes students unfortunately don't get hired, so they're not going to see that money. And that's why it's important that you know that work study amount is only given to you once you get hired by a job. And like I mentioned before, you would just divide everything by 3 because if you go to a quarter school, you will pay for all of your tuition and fees 3 times a year. If you go to a semester school, you would divide it by 2. So after we break down their financial aid package, this student will have $7,348 left over. If they take out, I also didn't include any loans when I did the breakout because I wasn't sure if the student actually took out loans. But if you take it into account the loan amount that they were given, they will have $12,848 that they could use for housing. So if you subtract that amount from the housing cost, the student will be left to pay $2,993, which is almost exactly what they're being awarded for work study. So they'll be left with the $1 that they would have to pay. But once again, I wouldn't count the work study into the amount that you will have to pay because you don't know when you're going to get hired when you start your first year of college. So I'm going to talk about work study a little bit more for students who don't know what it is. So work study is a federal work study program that provides jobs for undergraduate and graduate students with financial need. It allows them to earn money to help pay for expenses related to their education. And if you get work study, it's really encouraged that you do community service work or you work in something related to your course of study. So a lot of the office jobs on campus, they don't have funding for student workers. So in order to be able to give you employment, you have to have work study. There's certain internships that you could do that will take work study to pay for your work study is not guaranteed every year, but it is common to keep receiving it if you use it the year before. In order to receive work study, you must say yes on the FAFSA application when it asks if you want to be considered for it. And then work study should not be relied upon as you must work in order to receive it. Work study is also offered by your school. So let's say you're only given $1,000 of work study. Some schools, if you go to the financial aid office and let them know, like, hey, I used up all my work study. Do you guys have funds for me to extend my work employment? And sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. It never hurts for you to ask. But once again, it's really important that if you are awarded work study, you try to get a job that year because if a school sees that you're not using it, they tend to take it away to give it to another student who may use it. So I have some important reminders. One thing is that students must use their parents' income slash financial information until they turn 24. So what does this mean? So this means that if you're doing your FAFSA application, even after you turn 18, you still have to use your parents' income and information to fill out the FAFSA. A lot of students and parents have this idea that as soon as students start working, they don't have to use their parents' information, and that's not true. You have to use your parents' income until the student turns 24, is legally emancipated, or if you're a foster child slash ward of the state. If you don't qualify for one of those three, you are required to use your parents' income, regardless if you work and file your own taxes. The FAFSA So the FAFSA application, you're able to do it as many times as you want, but you're only eligible for the Pell Grant for 5 years. So make sure if you're someone who's going to go to community college and transfer, you're planning that you're only eligible for FAFSA for 5 years. So what does this mean? So let's say you go to community college and it takes you 3 years to complete community college and then transfer, and then it might take you another 3 years to get your bachelor's degree. You're only eligible for Pell Grant for 5 years. So that last year, you would not be eligible for any Pell Grant and you would be expected to probably pay for everything out of pocket because in order to get Pell Grant, or I'm sorry, you might be having to pay for more costs out of pocket because a lot of um, grants do use the Pell Grant FAFSA information in order to see if you're eligible. So if you are going to community college, and you are using the Pell Grant while you're there, I really highly suggest that you save whatever you don't have to use to tuition um, in a bank account so that you have those funds accessible and there for you when you transfer into a more expensive school. So, and some important reminders for seniors, please make sure that once you commit to a school, you go back into your FAFSA and your Cal Grant accounts and you put that school that you're committing to as number one. If you don't, FAFSA and the Cal Grant they're not going to send the information that the financial aid offices of your school needs. We've been realizing that a lot of students aren't doing that, so they're not getting financial aid packages. That could be a reason why. So make sure once you commit to a school, you go back into your FAFSA and your Cal Grant again accounts and list that school as your number one option. Please check your college emails for any to-do list from the financial aid office. So sometimes students are elected for a verification from their school's financial aid offices. If you're a student and you're elected for verification, do not worry. This is very common. Sometimes it's done randomly. And if you do get selected, you have to make sure you respond by all and any given deadlines. If you miss a deadline for this, it could have serious consequences for you. So please make sure that you're looking at your college emails, you're looking at your emails, and if the financial aid office is emailing you to do something, you do it right away. You don't want to get your aid revoked because you're not following deadlines. So that's actually my last slide. If anyone has any questions, you guys could please go ahead and send it in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Um, I'm sorry, so I had a wrong mistake. So the Pell Grant is actually 6 years, not 5 years. So please keep that into account and make sure you guys are keep updated in any information that might be changed while you're in college, because sometimes the Pell Grant the requirements could be changed, and it's better that you guys keep updated so you can know about them. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the link for the survey into the chat. Like I mentioned earlier, you do need to do the survey in order to get credit for coming today. Please go ahead and open it. We'll be on here for a little bit to make sure